Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Philosophy in the Sun, where we talk about philosophy and a little bit of disability theory as well. This is episode 4 of my series on Wednesday, season 2. And in this episode, we're going to be tackling Wednesday, season 2, episode 4. We're going to be having a good look at the bad decisions that Wednesday makes in this episode, and we're going to be looking at those bad decisions in terms of the philosophy of poor decision making, which surprisingly does in fact exist. Both Plato and Aristotle, the greatest, I would argue, of the ancient Greek philosophers, dedicated time and thought to thinking what is a good decision, what's a bad decision, and also what does it mean when we make stupid decisions we know are stupid, but we still go ahead and take them. And that's what I would argue happens in today's episode of Wednesday. So this is sort of the mid-season climax. It's episode 4, and the plot's really been cranking along. Wednesday's really concerned about her best friend Enid. She's had a psychic vision that Enid's going to die, and instead of going and talking to her friend, she, of course, tries to breach the old-fashioned spooky asylum that her dangerous and evil and literally monstrous ex-boyfriend is being held in with only the assistance of her very dubiously effective Uncle Fester, who has some zappy lightning powers, but isn't really what you might call a heavyweight. And this culminates in our heroine being flung out of an upper story window by her said monstrous ex-boyfriend. Now, I think it's pretty obvious to most of us in the audience that Wednesday's move here probably should have been to go to her best friend, Enid the werewolf, and say something like, "Hey, so I had this vision you might die and it might be my fault, and I feel terrible about that, and I'm really worried about you. Maybe we should figure something out to like change this terrible fate of yours." But I think what Wednesday is worried about is that, yeah, she's really arrogant. She thinks she knows what she's doing, but she doesn't. She's 16. But the thing is, she's also, I think, deep down, really insecure and worried that her best friend will, recoil in horror from the possibility that she might die. Or, even worse, Enid might just reject her and realize, hey, these powers are too spooky. I can't cope with your spooky gothness anymore. Go away, Wednesday. So she's scared and she's having this inner battle. And the ancient Greek philosophers, they talk about these kind of internal struggles all the time, how we go about deciding what to do. And both Plato and Aristotle argue that it's really important to try to make good decisions. Aristotle's philosophy is much more focused on good decision making than Plato's overall. He has a classic book, The Nicomachean Ethics, which is really a hand guide to making good decisions and living well. And he argues that people need to make good decisions in order to live good lives. And if we're going to do that, we need to develop a good character throughout the course of our lives. So essentially, Wednesday just needs practice if she's going to be a good person. And what Plato would probably say is that she needs to practice a little more curiosity and interest in her world, and then better decisions will probably come to her. But these two philosophers, they have a little bit of a conflict when it comes to how they see the philosophy of making stupid decisions, like the one to run blindly into an asylum that you know is dangerous, all by yourself or with very limited assistance, and then get flung out of a window. What Plato says is, look, people, we don't really intentionally make bad decisions. Nobody really comes at a situation and does what they know is actually going to be harmful to them. And the word that the ancient Greeks used for this was akrasia. This is the type of decision one makes that one knows is stupid but makes anyways. It's 3 a.m, you're still watching Netflix, you can't stop. You have school tomorrow or work or just life, but yet you can't stop. So what Plato says is, look, people in that situation, they just don't really know the consequences of their action. You just don't really know how bad tomorrow is going to be if you don't knock it off and get some shut-eye. You just don't understand. And if you did, people are rational, and if you did know the consequences really in your bones, you'd just stop.
who either knows or believes that there is another possible course of action, better than the one he is following, will ever continue on his present course. Protagoras 358 BC.
Stop. So this line of thought would be, okay, so Wednesday. If you really understood that the consequence of your flinging yourself blindly into peril once more would be that you would get thrown out of a window and your best friend would be a couple steps closer to dying, you, Wednesday, would probably, in fact, knock it off, go get help, I don't know, talk to Enid, grab a teacher, although the Nevermore teachers seem to be somewhat less than effective, but take some other course of action involving some level of sanity. So that's what Plato's going to say. Look, you're making a bad decision, but you don't really realize it. No one, he argued, can actually do something that they themselves really think they shouldn't do. Plato just says people don't do that. People don't do that. Aristotle, who was actually really quite close in time to Plato, says, hey, wait a second. Have you met a human being, Plato? We do that all the time. People make mistakes like this all the time. Of course people do things, make decisions that they know are bad and stupid. It's part of being human. We make these kind of mistakes. What we need to do is train ourselves to have good self-control so we don't let our desires run rampant over our reason. And interestingly, because philosophers never let go of an interesting idea, philosophers have been talking about this for about 2,000 years, whether or not we can make bad decisions we know are bad decisions. So we don't let go of an idea, we philosophers. We prefer just to hold on to them for millennia. So that's the one half of it. The thing I think Wednesday is doing is she's making a mistake. Deep down, she knows it's a mistake. So I think she would fall a little more into the Aristotelian camp here. But when it comes to the TV show itself, I think we're being a little more Platonic in the worst way. I think they're making some mistakes about disability representation, and I don't think the show realizes it. So for the second time, we have a situation where we're focusing on an asylum. And throughout this episode, even more than when we saw this a couple episodes ago, the asylum is framed as a place of real horror. Mental illness is repeatedly played off for laughs with Uncle Fester. He goes into the asylum as a mole and he poses as someone with mental illness, and it's framed as being hilariously funny. And we have a lot of really negative framing of mental illness. We even have something kind of interesting where there's some courtesy stigma associated to the people who work in this fictional asylum. Uncle Fester kind of swindles and romances one of the workers at the asylum, and she is presented in just the worst way possible as very physically unattractive and not very bright. And so we get that interesting association where even if you are associating with disabled people, you can wind up getting some courtesy stigma. It's not...
Lois. Oh, your name's Louise.
It's not great. The whole asylum for horror thing is a little played out. As a disabled person myself, don't love it. But I would say that the production, I don't know for sure, but I would guess the production Wednesday rather than Wednesday our heroine, probably don't realize the mistakes that they're making. So in terms of the philosophy of bad decision, we're probably a little more in Platonic territory where they think they're doing pretty great. They think they're doing the right things. If they knew a little more about disability theory and the disability community, they might hold back a touch on the macabre asylum bit. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you all next Wednesday, and please do subscribe if you would like some more philosophy and popular culture content. Bye for now.